Advanced Psychoproctology for Beginners. A-hole Diagnosis, Treatment, and Prevention with Dr. Jeremy Sherman. Welcome to Class 9 of our Advanced Psychoproctology course for beginners. In the last session, we explored how someone might slide down a detour into aholia by way of a doctrine. Today, we'll explore doctrine-free detours, people becoming a-holes with no ideological send-off. Let's start with another illustration, a fictitious a-hole without a cause, who I'll call Will. I just couldn't catch a break. Everything I tried went nowhere or south. I'd have these plans, nothing fancy, just me fitting in and getting by. Day after day, I'd get my hopes up and then dashed. I'd feel like shit, but I couldn't just resign myself to being a loser. I'd have to stay hopeful no matter what, which meant, I guess, relaxing my standards for success, giving myself pep talks and trying to ignore the big picture, trying to live one day at a time, like holding up in the moment because my past and my future, well, they sucked, and I don't have time for that. I'd get pissed when people look at me like I'm a loser. I'd want to lash out. And sometimes I did. It wasn't hard. They're just being cruel. They talk to me like I wasn't keeping up, when damn it, I was keeping up. I was succeeding better than them, which they refuse to see because they're just jealous and like to pick on me for no reason. They'd talk like I should try harder, but I was trying. It's not easy for a guy in my situation. Not my fault I wasn't succeeding. They wouldn't cut me any slack, cold-hearted bastards. And they'd act like succeeding was such a big deal. Well, not to me. I don't care about succeeding at all. I march to my own drummer. I'm my own person, keeping it real, keeping my head up high, which ain't easy with everyone giving me crap. People get confused by all that. Was I saying I was already succeeding, trying and not succeeding, or done trying? You know what? Confusing them was a kind of succeeding for me. So was lashing out. I could get folks to back off. They'd give up on me, which in a way was a success, since I could tell they were just like picking on me for no reason. Eventually, I got more faith in myself. I realized that I don't have to be right or do right. I don't have to prove anything to anyone. I just have to feel good about myself is all. Anyone who doesn't like me is an asshole. I'm not taking anyone's crap. I'm keeping my head up no matter what. I don't have many friends, any really. I'm barely scraping by, but fuck it, I'm happy. And anyway, people are all just assholes. My family, all assholes. My exes, total assholes. They just nag me like shit was my fault. When they talk to me, I say whatever to get them out of my face. It doesn't matter what I say so long as it gets them and their ugly noise gone. I don't even think about it. Or them anymore. Losers, all of them. Dead to me. Is this really working for me? There's that damn question again. I'm not answering it. Of course it is, and fuck you for even questioning me, asshole. Leave me alone. Will is intransigent. He can't, won't, or thinks he shouldn't budge. He's in a rut that, with a-hole insistence, he claims is a groove. Will has no other mission other than making sure he doesn't have to change. We could distill his crusade down to the mantra, get out of my way. Absolute intransigence is his lifestyle, his sustained habit of interaction with all challenges. Intransigence comes naturally to us all. We'd all prefer that circumstances adjusted to us rather than us having to adjust to circumstances. We've got our habits and momentum and get frustrated when we're impeded, stymied, thwarted, stalled, or waylaid. We'd rather the other car let us through first. We'd rather be proven right than have to rethink things. It's just easier on us. Intransigence is a significant economic driver. Convenience sells. The economy runs on businesses tailoring the world to people, so people don't have to tailor themselves to the world. Think Amazon, a company that dominates the market by removing every inconvenience from the process of purchasing conveniences. Consumers get used to expecting more and paying less, and irritated, lashing out when forced to expect less or pay more. Today, people of even modest means spend increasing time interacting with reliable, efficient technology. We deal with occasional technical glitches, but they come and go, problems solved and solved for good. We come to expect efficiency, and not just from our technology, but from other people. We wish we could just update the operating system on frustrating folks so they'd work for us as efficiently as our technology does. Call it robo-envy, wishing that other people were reprogrammable robots, and wishing we were too, our learning as simple as flipping a switch. Change our mind and our behavior would change instantly and permanently. Though we worry about what technology is doing to our jobs and our minds, we also have come to expect the non-technical world to be as efficient and reliable as our technology. We demand to talk to the manager when people aren't as accommodating of us as our cell phones and computers are. It would be nice if we could just reprogram annoying people. When we can't, we too become annoying. Our expectations ratchet. When we've had an advantage, we'll take it for granted and get frustrated when it's threatened or removed. I like that slang term mojo for the momentum or inertia in each of us moving through the world, threading our way through openings where we find them and expecting those openings to stay open for us, like not wanting to give up our lucky privileges to others. I think of the mo as a combination of momentum and MO, or modus operandi, our mode of being. And the Joe is sort of like juice, the energy we channel into our work. I use mojo to mean our habitual motivational juice, our inertia, basically the part of any of us that when blocked says, coming through, damn it, get out of my way. Though we often talk as though we choose our habits consciously, relatively few of our habits are developed that way. Rather, we accumulate habits by intuition. For a pertinent example, our habits for distinguishing aholes. Even if we've never given any thought to what distinguished them, our guts just decide. A butthead is anyone we butt heads with. People say where there's a will, there's a way, as though we consciously decide to will something and then find a way to do it. Often it's the reverse. Where there's a way, there's a will. We happen on a way to get something we need or want, so that's the way we get it. We mostly take paths of least resistance, threading our way through life the way we thread through a crowd, avoiding congestion, finding our way by feel, mostly the feeling of comfort in our own skin. We can always find a reason why we consciously decided to take the path we've taken, but it's mostly an afterthought. It's as though we pray to the God of self-explanation. Grant me one plausible reason for what I just did or want to do. The God of self-explanation always provides. That guy Will doesn't have what it takes to find his way through life's congestion. He's impeded, so he snarls at people until that snarling becomes a new pathway for him. Being an a-hole is his path of least resistance. He gets in the habit of snarling to get people to back off, and it works. Snarling becomes a habit, Will's path of least resistance. Will has no rationalizing doctrine for being an a-hole to people. Still, he's like I was in the last class when people started making fun of me for my doctrine as if I had a kick me sign on my butt. In that illustration, I found the path of least resistance to feeling good about myself by declaring holy war on anyone who challenged me. My mojo found a detour into aholia. I didn't consciously decide to become an a-hole. It was just the path of least resistance, an opening, and I took it. When the going gets tough, our unconscious mojo just plows through any opening it can find. In the unlikely case that you forget the feeling of having your mojo thwarted, consider a toddler refusing to leave the playground, or a mouthy preteen I'll call Don. Don is playing video games in his room when his mom calls to him that it's time to do chores. His head's in the game, a first-person shooter that has him in a tank mowing down everyone in his paths. Don's good at it. His habits are well adapted to the game's habits. He's in the zone, on a roll, in his groove, within the groove of the game. In other words, he fits it, and so no, he doesn't want to quit and do chores. He'll throw a fit instead. Still playing, he brays at his mom through his bedroom door, spouting whatever to get her to back off. He pouts, whimpers, moans, whines, bleats, blasts, snarls, barks, scolds, screams, preaches, moralizes, condemns, threatens, and fumes. To him, it's all just noise to keep his pathway clear, just his hot air horn of intransigence. He blares it with theatrical earnestness to give the false impression that his substantive arguments trump all other considerations, but really all the braying means is, I'm not budging. It's animal, like a dog snarling at anyone approaching its food dish. His mom is trying to teach reasonableness by example. Don's fake earnestness tugs at her. He's her kid. She's devoted to him, so she takes his rants literally, as though he means what he brays. Don likes that she's reading meaning into the words he's just braying. While she's trying to reason with him, he gets to keep on playing. So long as Don gets his way with it, he has no reason to stop braying. They've been through this before, pretty much daily. It's becoming a habit for both of them. His braying intransigent is a rough rut for her, but for him it's becoming an ever smoother groove, an extension of his video game groove, tank blasting through obstacles in the virtual game, while bray blasting at his mom to keep playing in real life. Will and Don are different. Will may be intransigent because he has no choice. He can't succeed even if he tried. You might feel some compassion for him, as for a bird with broken wings. For Will, intransigence has already become a lifestyle, a deep, entrenched groove. It isn't yet a lifestyle for Don, though if it goes unchecked, it will become one. What Will and Don have in common is that mindless, scornful braying, which mindful people easily misinterpret as meaning more than, get out of my face, leave me the hell alone. Braying can become a lifestyle for any of us. It's the most efficient way to alleviate mojo-eroding cognitive dissonance. Nothing vaporizes our sense of complicity as effectively as righteous indignation. It's like blaring your moralizing police siren so loud it drowns out all introspection. Channeling our outrage at others for getting in our way purges our sense that we may be contributing to the congestion. Just because we're thwarted, it doesn't necessarily mean that other people are thwarting us. Just because we're frustrated, it doesn't necessarily mean that other people are out to frustrate us. Still, it's understandable that we would automatically project and blame. Indignance-fueled self-righteousness girds our loins for holy war. A holy warrior can't afford to be thinking about their own unholiness. It would make them too conciliatory. You can't see the convincing "how dare you" if you're busy thinking about the times when you dared to act the same way. Righteous indignation vaporizes all sense of personal responsibility. When you're attacking someone for lying, you'll have no recollection of ever lying. Thus, the warring makes us feel holy, and that feeling of holiness girds our loins for war. Chances are you've dealt with someone like Will or Don, maybe a deadbeat ex, a relative or friend, a horrible boss. Chances are, too, that you've been like them from time to time. No one is exempt. Again, in his 2005 bestseller on bullshit, the philosopher Harry Frankfurt made that important distinction. Lying is knowing you're not telling the truth. Bullshitting is not caring what's true. Let's call Will and Don's braying bullshit dozing, bullshitting to bulldoze through anything that thwarts us. The term bulldoze originated in the 1860s as bull-dosing, intimidating by violence, whipping with a dose fit for a bull. Bulldozer meant heavy-handed intransigence 60 years before it became the name for a piece of heavy roadwork equipment. Bullshit dozing is trying to get the last word, and with frame dominance, the last word about who gets the last word, neither of which require any interest in whether one's words are realistic, so long as they're the last. A bullshit dozer is an ass braying away, mindlessly vocalizing any sounds that might get other people to back off. An a-hole without a cause is bullshit dozing. But so is an a-hole with a cause, in that the Crusaders' declared cause is just a fake front for their gut-level intransigence. As with the term a-hole, we'll need a child-safe term for bullshit dozing. We could call it bullshut dozing, which implies being shut or unreceptive to the people who are obstacles in our way as we doze off, our habits running on autopilot. Bullshit dozing is to intransigence what sleepwalking is to walking, a mindless habit of trudging forward, obstacles be damned. The Trump cult is committed to absolute bullshit dozing, deeply stuck in its ways of being deeply stuck in its ways. The cult claims that freedom is its existential mission, but in practice, the only freedom that matters to the cult is its freedom, the sole theme of the movement, rarely exposed as the bullshit dozing it is. The cult demands absolute, uncompromised freedom for itself at the expense of the freedom to anyone else. The freedom the Trump cult demands and proudly cherishes is their freedom from ever having to accommodate, change, grow, learn, think, wonder, or doubt ever again. The Trump cult grounds its intransigence in a cherry-picked reading of American history as nothing but give me liberty or give me death and don't tread on me. They reinterpret we the people as me the people. The cult members act as though all the United States ever stood for was their personal individual freedom. It's not America first. It's not nationalism. It's me first, not based on any political theory, even though the members preen like they're the foremost political scientists. That's absolute bullshit dozing. A cult like Trump's is a collective bullshit dozer for an arbitrarily designated demographic. The arbitrariness makes collective bullshit dozing generically exclusive. And yes, generically exclusive is an oxymoron. All cults have the same generic formula for exclusive entitlement. We're the chosen. We're the elect. We're owed exclusively right of way. And why? Because we have these arbitrary traits. Our gender, race, views, or whatever makes us the indomitable authorities. Stand back. We're plowing through and taking over. Because we deserve more. To become an absolute bullshit dozer is to become literally unreasonable and incorrigible. literally without reasons and never correctable. If you listen to Trump's rhetoric, it's all circular. Means justify ends, which justify means. It's the tightest circularity possible. No reasons necessary. As tight as why? Because. It would be easy to interpret bullshit dozing as unbridled egomania, but the root motivation may be simpler than that. It's just how we can get our way rather than having to give way. Its confirmation bias is the solution to all problems, but it's not just our selective interaction with ideas. Indeed, ideas are hardly the point. It's more practical than that, more visceral than ideas. With bullshit dozing, you bulldoze through everything that would block you. Ideas, people, obstacles, even reality itself. Again, bullshit dozing comes naturally to any of us. Our default habit is to persist in our default habits. So we tend to assume that the impediments to our persistence are the other guy's fault. We get fed up with accommodating, so head down, we bulldoze through. We have our coping strategies, but also our noping strategies, our many ways of saying nope to anything or anyone harshing our buzz. The noping strategy palette is broad. We can nope loudly or softly, angrily or gently. We can sound calm or logical or vicious, whatever works to get folks to back off and get out of our way. Silence is an efficient noping strategy because it's so ambiguous, leaving the other guy guessing what we meant by it. Silence implies that you've already gotten the last word. All later words are inadmissible, falling on deaf ears as indicated by our mute mouths. Don't look up. Don't respond to whoever asks you to tuck in your elbows to make room for them. Instead, look down and jut your elbows out as though other people don't exist. Imitate a wall. Force others to walk around you. Be unflinching, unresponsive. People will complain that talking to you is like talking to a wall. Like a wall, ignore their complaint. If we get away with it, we don't learn to do otherwise. When we're unchecked by others or by reality itself, our habits get reinforced, and we don't have to learn or adapt. That's how braying becomes a way of life, the a-hole lifestyle. If we get away with getting our way becomes absolute, and we become a-holes. We become mindlessly, heartlessly, robotically oblivious. Bullshit dozing will appear narcissistic, but in a way it's the opposite. A bullshit dozer is like a headless swellhead. Playing God would be like that, incorporeal yet omnipotent. A-holes take up so much space, and yet there's nobody home to hear our frustration at being jerked and rammed out of their way. The term deadbeat originates as an unbeatable dead weight, a mindless, indomitable zombie. It's not that a deadbeat a-hole emperor has no clothes, but that the emperor is nothing but an empty suit of armor, a hollow, hardened fortress. With that in mind, let's examine a few more routes to a-holia. Again, to highlight the way anyone can become one, I'll use myself as the a-hole. One way down into a-holia is to have a cause but a local one. Not a doctrine, but a project. The project starts out as a groove but ends up being a rut we're too stuck in to exit. I committed to something, not a doctrine, but a marriage, career, job, venture, investment, or even a drug addiction. I thought that by now I'd be doing better than I am. I thought it was a groove and I adapted myself to it. I threw in with it because I expected it to flourish, and it hasn't. I'm tanking, and I want to save face. I'll take whatever excuse makes me feel okay despite how badly it's going. I have to wake up each morning with renewed hope, so I'll latch on to any positive interpretation of my commitment. It was the right thing to do somehow. Doesn't matter whether my positive interpretations contradict my reality or contradict each other's. What matters is that I've got reasons to keep going, avoiding the sense that I invested poorly. I'll claim that it's not my fault that I made a bad choice, and it wasn't a bad choice anyway. And anyway, it would have worked if reality hadn't gotten in the way, and it will work yet. Or it's working, damn it. Or really, it would have worked better even than it already is, except for all those stupid people who are just trying to keep me down because they're jealous of my inevitable success, which isn't here yet but will be, and is already here. Circumstances beyond my control just dealt me a temporary setback that isn't a setback because it's all good news. Just shut up. I'm on track. My commitment will pay off in the end. Just like in the movies, a hero's journey into a rut only to rise into a groove like the proverbial phoenix. Such rationalizations keep my spirits up even as my real prospects plummet. They give me the confidence to keep investing, perhaps because I have to. I'm in too deep. I can't just walk away. The more I neglect my reality, though, the worse my problems become. When the reality checks get too disappointing, I check out. I ignore reality, which neglected gets worse, yielding still more disappointing reality checks for me to neglect in a dissociation death spiral. Maybe my friends are intervening, trying to get me to face the music, which makes them just more annoying reality checks I've got to block. And I can block them better and better because with each uptick in real trouble I'm in, I dissociate more. I become more self-gullible. I gradually dismantle my internal BS detector. I may become a more strident BS detector about the challenges to my pride, but I don't apply the same standard to my BS. Not only do I accumulate reasons why everything's fine already, but reasons why anyone who discourages me is just plain wrong and immoral. I have proud blind faith in myself. If you question my faith, you're a fool or evil. I should never have to listen to people who doubt me. I'll embrace any excuse because something's got to give, and it sure as hell isn't going to be my mojo. I'll lean more and more on proud, stubborn, blind faith in myself, less and less into learning and adapting until all I'm learning is how to be more nimbly slippery in defending my proud, blind faith. Here's another variation, grooving in a groove that gives out, no longer containing me, leaving me disoriented. If I can't find a path to follow in the world, I'll overcompensate by becoming a bullshit-dozing a-hole, pretending I'm guided by internal convictions when really I'm just lost. I was grooving in a smooth groove. I was well habituated to it. Everything was going great. I was humming along, very happily partnered and employed, grooving in my groove like it could go on forever. My circumstances fit me so well that I hardly noticed them. I felt self-made, totally free. They say you don't miss your water until your well runs dry. Well, that's what happened to me. My support network disappeared. My partner left me. I was laid off. Suddenly I was at loose ends. Funny how that works. I felt more independent when I was dependent. Now that I'm independent, I'm forced to face how dependent I had become. I got way too much time on my hands. I'm irritable. It's like going cold turkey off a drug that I didn't know I was addicted to. I was grooving in my groove, and then the groove suddenly went shallow. I'd say I'm bouncing off the walls, but walls are just what I lack. I have nothing to hold me, which makes me easy to knock off balance. Back when I was better held, you could bump me all you wanted. Nothing bothered me. It was like I was scaffolded. I didn't realize it, but I had training wheels or crutches. Now they're gone, and if anyone nudges me in the slightest, it feels like I'm falling. I've gotten prickly, hypersensitive. I'm looking for a new partner and job, but between my loss of self-confidence, my prickliness, and my wariness, I guess I'm not ready yet. I date, desperate to get back on the horse that bucked me, but man, the slightest criticism and I just lose it, like I'm compensating with all my might. Being this prickly, I'm losing it, losing friends and allies too. But that's not my fault. Anyone who disappoints me doesn't deserve my company. I've been stalking and trolling my ex and my ex-boss. Nobody gets to mess with me. I demand respect, and anyone who doesn't supply it, well, it's holy war to defend my virtue. That detour to aholery is similar to what some researchers argue motivates the Trump cultists. So I'll mention it here, though it pertains more to a-holes with a supposed cause. Life used to be better. People knew their place, and as a white male, my place was on top. Things have changed. Suddenly you can't tell where you belong. Women bosses, black presidents, the world's gone crazy, and I'm getting the groove pulled out from under me. It's so unfair. I expect to be maintained in the manner to which I'm accustomed. That's why I'm for making America great again. My circumstances used to show me more respect. And now the immigrants and uppity underclass are tearing down everything I stand for and everything about the groove I've stood in all these centuries. My ancestors would call me a wimp for taking this lying down, so I won't. I'm fighting for my history, my legacy, what's rightfully mine. Here's another detour, like Will's. Me not well fit to this world. But unlike Will's case, this one's situational. I like a line from a Philip Larkin poem. In only life can take so long to climb clear of its wrong beginning, and may never. This one's like that. I never had a chance, really. I'm not made for this world, or maybe it's not made for me, and it should be. I was born so poor into such an awful family. I was education deprived. The prejudice against my kind is just intense. The world is so unfair. It picks on me, and I won't just sit back and take it. I'm no wimp. I'm a hero, actually, and anyone who gives me a hard time about anything is going to pay. Notice how this detour can turn the victims of oppression into a-holes, which is not accounted for in Robert Sutton's criteria that an a-hole is someone who targets people who are less powerful than him or her. And here's the opposite detour, someone born lucky, spoiled and entitled, perhaps like Trump. I guess you could say I'm lucky, though I prefer to call it gifted. I never had any trouble getting anything I wanted. I'm popular, wealthy, sexy, powerful, even famous. Nothing has ever held me back, nor should it. I'm an exception to the rules, probably gifted on purpose, maybe by God who chose me to be the winner I am. I used to feel guilty sometimes about how much luck I had. Not anymore. Now I'm confident that the world owes me what I get. And when it doesn't deliver, like when service is bad at a restaurant or people challenge my brilliant insights, well, I tear into them. No one gets to talk to me like that. I'm destined for great things. Nobody and nothing should stand in my way. And another detour to Aholes, an opening found by the nouveau riche, graced with windfall power, money, or fame. I was so desperate to make it big, there were times I almost gave up hope, thinking I just wasn't cut out for it. And then I hit the jackpot. I always knew I would. I paid my dues and I got what I was owed. I deserve it, and now that I'm on top, I play the part. I stick it to anyone who ever doubted me, and I act like the god I always knew I was. Once you make it to the top, you really can do no wrong, and no one dares mess with you. There are a lot of haters out there who want to tear you down, and a bunch of loser climbers who are desperate to make it big. Pitiful that people would act like that. I sneer at those losers. They're not destined for greatness the way I was when I was in their situation. Here's another detour, familiar to anyone who thinks they ended up with a deadbeat partner. It was pretty much love at first sight for both of us. It felt like we had finally found a groove within which to nestle up. I wanted a soulmate. My partner was perfect and also really hot. I was flattered that they'd want to be with me. I expected a smooth groove, but it didn't work out that way. I'd come home from work tired, sometimes irritable. I expected peace, but that's not what I got. I get all sorts of complaints about practical matters that I wanted to put off. I wanted to kick back, but there was always pressure that would start to feel like nagging. Sometimes my partner just wanted to tell me about their day, which I tolerated, often about someone who was frustrating to them at work. My partner wanted me to commiserate and always be on their side. I'd humor them, let them bend my ear. And then sometimes they'd be telling me about how they feel about other people, spotlighting who bugged them, and then the spotlight swung over to me and my faults. It became just a nag. I felt tricked into listening. I didn't like the abrasion, and sometimes I'd snarl. Afterwards, I'd apologize, trying to patch things up. I'd pledge to do better, but I wouldn't be able to sustain it because I began to realize that my partner was just a narcissistic, gaslighting a-hole, just out to make me feel bad about myself. That's not what I contracted for at all. I contracted for a hot fan devoted to me and ended up with this nagger. That's on my partner. That's not on me. I was tricked. I realized I don't have to put up with this. I misread my partner. Hot, sure, but not anymore. Flattering, sure, at first, but maybe that was just to snare me. Now I get none of that. I just wish I was single again. So yeah, I'm pretty much an a-hole to my partner always these days, but not really, because really my partner is the a-hole. I should be treated with more respect in my home. I deserve it. I do my part, and it's not my fault if I don't. And I shouldn't even be in this stupid relationship that my partner seduced me into. So mostly I just ignore what they say to me now. I'm shut down because they're an a-hole. I can't wait to get free. And when I do, I'll tell people that my ex was just an a-hole. Yet another detour, becoming a professional a-hole for hire. My career is in one of the many professions that pays us to keep up appearances. Politics, sales, upper management, PR, law, customer service. My livelihood depends on playing a role. And if I don't do it well, someone else will readily take my place. And I won't be able to put food on my table. My job, right or wrong. Mine is not to wonder why. Mine is just to do or die. My job rewards me for being slippery, cunning, and clever, positive, and always upbeat, defending my employers. They don't pay me to be a thinker, wanderer, or a moral philosopher. I take less pride in my mission than in my spin and frame dominance skills. It's a war, and I'm a good soldier. It's not a holy war. I have no grand mission, any more than most people do to make a living. I'm just on the front lines and have to keep up appearances. Everyone in my profession puts a positive spin on putting a positive spin on what we're doing. There's a lot of competition, so yes, it's a war. But the point of the war is merely to win it, to beat the competition. Doing the right thing becomes a burdensome weight carried by novices and shed by pros like me. The attitude in my career is that life is just a game, a competitive sport. The winners are the best at selling whatever. I say I do it for my family. That's honorable, right? To get to the top, people sell out, like they'd sell their grandmother. And I wouldn't put it past me if I got the opportunity. Claiming to do it for my family is just another part of the sell job. After all, what does reality matter? Maybe there is no reality. Maybe reality is just whatever anyone powerful says it is. The trick then is to be powerful. I can't afford to tether myself to reality. And another detour, also a product of having to adapt to one's circumstances, being trapped in a district of Aholes. I live in a rough neighborhood in a lawless country. I've lived here all my life, and whatever decency I had was beaten out of me by consequences. Here, everyone is so desperately poor they can't afford scruples. It's a den of thieving a-holes, so yes, when in Rome. Besides, it's all I've ever known. You people who talk like we should all be kind and trusting, you have no idea. You wouldn't last a day here. Our roads are unmarked and unmaintained. Total chaos. You may think you're on a safe one and it turns into a dark, dead-end alley where they'll cut your throat. So I've got my weapons. I trust no one and no one trusts me. Being an a-hole is the only way to survive here. Gaslight or be gaslit. Reality? Don't make me laugh. Here the reality is whatever anyone in power claims it is. Our leaders have always been a-holes. They wouldn't survive if they weren't. And they don't. We've had just one a-hole dictator after another. I've got no loyalty. If you approach me with decency, I'll cut you, because that's how we do things here. And a final detour, also a function of being stuck in a district of Aholes, but then escaping, though taking the Aholes with you. I was born in a cult. I grew up believing that we had all the answers and anyone who didn't think like us was the devil's spawn. It's how my parents raised me and the only way I knew. What I knew was that I knew everything that mattered. Well, I'd broken away from that cult. I realize now that it was totally wrong. Now I'm independent-minded. I believe what I want to believe. It's freeing. Of course, it was nice feeling like I knew everything I needed to know. I wouldn't want to give that up, so now I just trust my heart on everything. There's no almighty God. There's just my almighty gut. It's always right about everything. The only time I make mistakes is when I don't listen to my gut, like when I make the mistake of listening to other people and they throw me off. So I don't listen to other people because my gut knows better. I shouldn't have trusted my cult, and I should have trusted my gut instead. So that's what I do, and I don't trust anyone. I don't mean this to be an all-inclusive catalog of ways one can detour into Aholes without a cause, nor do I mean that any of these scenarios are unavoidable paths to Aholes. For example, by midlife, most of us discover that our groove has more rut-like qualities than we expected. That's what midlife crises are about. Plenty of people don't end up becoming a-holes about it. The last few class sessions have surveyed ideas about what's going on with a-holes, the spin and frame dominance tricks a-holes use, and some of the many detours to Aholes. In the next session, we'll finally come up with a more accurate term than a-hole, and we'll deal with the practical challenge of making careful, educated bets about whether we're dealing with one. After that, what you've been waiting for, if you haven't skipped ahead, the difficult challenge of making aholery cost, humbly humbling those who will say or do anything to bullshit doze their way through any effort to humble them. By the way, Don's mom finally wised up, realizing that he's just trying to keep playing his video games. She loves her son, of course. She's not trying to take revenge, despite his attempt to make her feel guilty. She doesn't forget for a moment that he's human. That's why she's ready to call him on his a-hole wannabe lifestyle. She's no longer going to pay attention to his ideas since they're all just braying. She'll continue to love him enough that she'll do what it takes to make his bullshit dozing a-hole lifestyle untenable. That's the spirit in which we'll tackle the challenge of stopping a-holes without becoming one. See you next session.